Welcome to the video today. We're going to look at Easy Keys working inside of RapidComposer as far as dragging in a pattern from Easy Keys, and we're going to see what we can do with it inside of RapidComposer as we convert it to a whole new set of chords, different voice leadings, adding our own melody line above that, and so on. So that's what we're going to do, and so let's start. First off, we need to choose what Easy Keys pattern we want. So let's go to Browser and let's go to something simple like Ballads, Straight 4/4, and just a simple intro. And they get more complex as you go down. So let's just pick number 2 and let's listen to this. So that's really nice. It's these are played by professional piano players and then converted to MIDI, and they really retain the feeling and emotion. And that's what we want to bring into our RapidComposer so that we can work with that. So we want to capture as much as that of the original as possible, but we want to completely change it to what we want out of it, but we want to retain that feeling and emotion. So what we're going to do first is convert this pattern to our kind of generic basic chords. And because Easy Keys is easy, we can do that fairly simply. So let's grab these chords. Before we do that, we realize that this original pattern that we're going to work with is 63 beats per minute. So we want to convert our DAW, or you can convert RapidComposer to 63 beats per minute. But since these are synced up, let's just go with 63 here. And now our DAW is set for the right beats per minute. And we can take our mouse here, put it over the master track, hold down your control key, and click and drag in those chords, and now we have those chords inside of Easy Keys. So the C, F, G, C is now inside there, and all we have to do is hit this button, use Browser MIDI. That converts these chords into, or I should say these pattern notes up here are converted to these chords down here. Now if we hit the replace button now, it's replaced that MIDI and it's now able to be dragged, and we're going to drag it into piano melody 1 and let it highlight green there and then release, and now it's inside of RapidComposer. So we can now click on here and mute this inside Easy Keys, and so we won't get double notes triggering. And then later we'll use it for reference from the original. All right, let's take this and drag out the workspace to a very large area. And we can double click on this piano melody. That enlarges it, and we can now hear what we got. So we play from the beginning. So it sounds very staccato, but the notes are all here and the notes are fine. What it's missing is the original sustain pedal and the sustain of the notes, which if you play piano like this, you know that you have to be sustaining notes. So we can fix that pretty quick. We just go over here, go to this tab, Edit tab, hit the note editing, and if I move this up a little bit, we can see the note velocity over here. Right click with your mouse on that, brings you to this tab, switch it to MIDI CC, and we want to add sustain. So that's what we look for right there. And we turn it up to something like 66 and click out of there. Now we listen again and we will have sustain with our notes. Okay, excellent. We have a very nice pattern converted to our own chord system here. We've added in the sustain. Now we want to do a little bit of voice leading possibly and have this converted into a register that's going to fit better. So now since we are in note edit mode with the pencil, we want to go back to the phrase editing icon here so that we can really work with it in a different way. So let's turn on our master track button of the V there, and we see that we now get, oops, wrong one. There we go. So we see that we now have our voice leading track, which we can just have it convert whatever notes below it to what we want up here. So the original chords are all basic. There's nothing special here at all. No customization. So we want these notes to blend in the best way with the notes next to it. So we want to do some note or chord voice leading from one to the next. This chord, the G and the C, already share the G, so there's some leading there, so that should be a good connection. And if we take this note here, turn it off, but turn it on over here, now we have these two notes, the two C's are leading into that. So I think that's good for now, and we can just zoom this back up. If I hit that little zoom, there we go. And so we have a little bit of custom voice leading. Next, what we're going to do is convert this pattern to follow this leading in the right register with our little change we made. Now we select the pattern and we right click, and I'm going to drag it up here, the tab, and make it a little bigger. We want to go to the chord tab, and we can say that, well, we want this pattern to be very specific on the information that is controlling it. So we want to use the master track voicing, which we just edited. So let's go there and let's click off apply voicing on chord. We may turn that back on later, but let's just start with this, use master track voicing, and click off of there. Now you notice that there isn't any change specifically yet. Let's turn on this magnet tool, which is going to really draw it into what we're doing up here with our chords. So we hit the magnet tool, little green button, but we hit it again so that it's going to point up and it's going to be magnetized to instructions above it, so to speak. And now we see a drastic change, and we can turn on the lock button here and you'll see a few notes change. And that's just bringing it more into line where I want these notes to be. Now, if we listen to it, it'll be quite different because it's moved in register and there's a few notes changed. Very good. We're at an excellent starting point for our next procedures. All right, so let's add a melody line above this rhythmic melody pattern that we have here. So to do that, we can use a melody generator, either the basic one or the Markov melody generator, which gives you different options. And you can see visually the different generators up here when you turn this little button on. That will give you a visual representation of the different generators. So say if we take the bass generator and I click it a few times, you can see that change. So it's really neat. And then you can also listen to it if you have it, your sound fonts turned on. So I just thought I'd mention that if I haven't in the past. Now it's going to play through that entire thing. Okay, so that's a good way to just check what you're listening to. And the reason why it's so slow is we have a very slow tempo set here, so that's why. But generally when you want to listen and visually see what your generators are doing and click through them and get different ideas, use that. Now, back to focusing on what we were doing. The melody generator, we can simply drag it in over and dump it onto our cube here. And I'm finding that if you hold down the control button with your mouse and move up and down, I'm finding that's a really great way to just resize individual tracks on the fly. There are different tools for moving tracks all at once and minimizing and all that, but if you want to just quickly zoom your track like that, it's a good idea to do it that way, and then you can zoom just holding down the mouse. So now we are at melody 2, and we have this very specific line, and we're going to turn it down because usually when I drag it in it's very loud at the beginning, so I'm going to turn it down and then slowly bring it in. And we're going to see how closely it matches or works with our edited original melody line here. So let's listen to it in the default state and see what we get. Alright, you can hear there are some notes that are not in line to where we want to go, but generally it's a very good start to where we want to go. We have to edit this. So I think what we'll do is we'll just align it to our main voicing. And so we will double click on the magnet and turn it up. So 2 clicks on the green magnet, and we will lock it into our scale that we're using. And now let's see what we get. You know, that's a good starting point. I would want to make some edits, but it's good enough so that if I was to bring it into the DAW and listen to it and just change the odd note, I think this is a really good starting point. So we're going to keep this melody 2 track, and we may mute it or solo it and listen to it later. But we have now another option to work with this. Also, before I leave this, I'm going to select and I'm going to right click, and we're going to look at the generator that created this. And we haven't really looked at generators yet at all. So this is a generator, the generic melody generator, the basic one. And I'm just going to show you now how many different options you have to work with what we just created. So you're in no way stuck with whatever's brought into a track. It's liquid, it's completely changeable in all these aspects. So to show that, I'm going to just regenerate, and then you can regenerate and morph just certain parts of it, the rhythm, or if you like the notes but you don't like the rhythm, you can change different parts of it, right? So the shape, say we like the rhythm, but we want a new shape to blend in with this. So we could just morph that. And you see it change up here, but it doesn't change down here inside your composition until you tell it to. Now it will. See there? And now we have one that's completely different. Let's listen to that. So we have a whole new line here. There are a couple notes that I'd want to edit into shape, but it's just a really fast way to get all these ideas. Now let's morph the entire thing and apply it. And now we have something else. And really, if that wasn't enough, being able to morph that, you can really change the note range. So say these notes being generated aren't in a range that you like, you can edit the range of the notes, and you can, there's a lot more that you can do here. Random movement. These sliders, you could experiment all day long with the different types, how many repetitions of notes. So it can be more, you see how it's changing there? Just, you see that? So you have a lot of control here just on sliders. How many steps? If you want it to play way more dynamically in range, look at how that works. Or if you want it just more compressed. So there are a lot of things that you can do, and so we're going to keep it more in line here. And to be honest, I haven't even tried most of these settings. There's just so much in this. This is just one generator. This melody generator, all these different generators have different ways that the generator tab works for that generator, so to speak. So there's a lot in this program. I'm just touching on just little bits of it today. All right, let's move on to something else. So I ended up changing this note range to higher, so it's these notes are playing from C4 all the way, up to C5. And so they're playing now at the upper range of the original phrase. And it just adds a lot to it and adds some more original bits to it. So it takes us from pretty far away from this original idea, but it's taken that beauty of the original ballad and we've just taken it, morphed it, and changed it to what we want according to our chords, our voicing, our new lead line, on the high notes, and rearranging some things. Now we're going to look at a few more things, how you can edit things really quickly. So again, we're going to play through the whole thing just so that we know exactly where we're at, and then we're going to add a new modifier to the main phrase. So let's listen. Okay, and before we even do that, I should mention that it's so easy to change any of these notes. So if we select our new upper melody, and we can put this on top just like that by dragging it over. So our, visually we have our higher melody above our original notes now. So you can drag these tracks how you like. But if I select this, go into edit mode or note edit, really you can, if I double click, we can expand on this like that. And any of these notes that you may want to adhere right to actual chord notes, just to make it sound even, now you don't want it to sound too generic, but if there is a note that you find that, you want to adjust anything, you definitely can. So we can just go back now to phrase edit, and if we listen, zoom back, and there might be a few changes in a couple notes that might work better. So see that note we changed. And there's a note there I may want to change without spending all day on this. Now, what I want to also show is, and I should have maybe showed it earlier, when you're in this note editing mode, let's go there again, double click to zoom it into it, like that. Below it is this note on velocity that we showed before, but we can drag, let's drag this up. If I get there, I was dragging on the wrong thing. These are all the velocities of these notes, of this upper line. Now, I may have changed a few notes, but they're, when you drag it in, they come with pre-made velocity mapping to make it interesting. But you can totally change that yourself. So there's different modes. If you take your mouse and if I right click I get all these options for how to handle and adjust all my velocity of the notes. So we can adjust one by one like this. So I can just turn the velocity of whatever note, and you will see it reflected in the color of the notes as you change that. Now you can also go into something called freehand mode, where you can literally draw in the velocities just like you would do in Cubase. And you'll see those velocity shades change as you do that live. So we can just, take a little bit of velocity off of some of the notes that may be too harsh, or we can take them up. And so that's how you can change velocities. There's also a lot of cool, like the line tool, exponential tool, curve tool, scale tool. So just like Cubase, you have a lot to work with. All right, let's go back, and remember, you always have to go back into phrase edit mode to edit the entire phrase, so don't forget that. And we are back to where we were. What I'm going to do now is take our main melody here, so the original one dragged in from Easy Keys, and I'm going to make a copy of it and bring it down to Piano Melody 3, where we can really kind of experiment with it. So we're going to keep our original, which is sounding really great, and with the new line up here, we're just going to make a copy. So we hold down the Alt key while we have it selected, hold down Alt, drag it onto the next track like that, release, and now we have a copy of that. And it's this copy here that we're going to start to experiment with. So let's mute the original, and we're going to mute the nice little line we put above it. So now we just have a copy, and we're going to start to explore this. Select and double click to expand, and we have now our phrase tab up here, which we can get into variations. We can, I'm going to see for myself if it will have the generator. So when you make a copy, you no longer have the generator available, but you can harmonize it. And I'm going to do this quickly just to show you how Auto-harmonize works. It's going to create, we have ticked off, create new track, Auto-harmonize. Now let's zoom out a little bit, and we have a new track automatically created below it with a really fast way to harmonize this original copied track. So these two tracks down here are the only ones that we're going to be listening to. Everything else is muted. Let's listen to the auto-generated harmony. Isn't that great? So I mean, really, listen to what just happened here. We have an original, so this track here, which is our copy, so it's really just our original track that we edited. We clicked the Auto-harmonize button, it created its own track, and now we have a harmony of that in block chords, and it just adds a whole new dimension. Let's go back to the beginning. I adjusted some of the expression volumes here as I was going. So the original, and now with the harmony. Isn't that just crazy? I mean, to me, this system is what I've been looking for a long time, where you can drag anything from anywhere and just create so many musical versions out of it. And so, I'm trying to show this in a video, so it's taking a long time because I have to go through every step and show how it's done. But once you get this workflow down, which I'm just learning now, and I know maybe a small part of this whole program, but what the experiments that I've been doing is it just takes MIDI and you can create so many musical variations of whatever concept you're working with. It might be your own piano playing on a keyboard that you've created a MIDI file that you drop in here. It may be something from Easy Keys, Easy Bass. It may be something from UJam. So I think you're beginning to see the possibilities here. All right, back to focus on editing the copied version of the original. So let's go and do that. So if we right click on it, we get to our tab, and if we add a variation to this, we can start doing some interesting things. Let's go and let's simplify it. So simplify phrase, we hit that, and we can see that now as we drag out the slider, the notes start to disappear in not so much a random way, but hopefully a musical way. Let's really do the whole thing. So we just take away all those steps, and let's listen if it's still somewhat musical after doing that operation fully. And so yeah, it's still very musical, and it's just simplified it. So I like the AI behind this, and so let's start doing some more stuff. And there's a big long tooltip that goes along with this, and it was there. Let's see. I'll have to read about that later. But it's done the job that I hoped that it would do. It simplified this phrase, and it's still musical, but it leaves more room for some other operations. So let's do that. And let's say that, well, how about if we add an interval now? Let's click on that, and we can adjust the polyphony so we can get a whole bunch of these stacks of intervals. But let's go and keep it basic to start with. Let's just listen to what that sounds like right out of the box. So back to the beginning. I can mute the original notes. Very musical. So that's an option, but we have more options here. We can, it's adding a third, but we could, if we wanted to be, have different effects on our music, we could take this in different ways. So we could just go an octave above. Let's listen to that. In fact, I'm going to go through some of these different intervals while it plays, just to give you an idea. The fifth sounds really good. Of course, it depends on the music. Just listen to that for a second. With the third below and the original notes gone. Listen. That's just a beautiful new version of this already. Now this, because it's a third below, may not fit exactly with the other tracks, but what we have here is, if we compare this to the original, now if we go back here, we have something different, but still quite lovely. And if I add in some of that sustain, so let's go and add in a bit of sustain. I think you'll hear more what I mean. Just want to make sure that I bring it up to a level that can be heard. All right, and now let's go back out of that to the beginning, and with some sustain, so it's just a whole new version of, if we click on it, that's where you have to make sure you click on it to see your tabs and variations. But let's turn off that interval and the simplify and go back to where we were. Let's turn simplify back on. Now with the interval. So it takes it and simplifies it, and then it turns it into a more kind of mysterious idea. And for me, that is what I'm looking for in a software like this. Taking ideas from MIDI, either what you create yourself or from other sources, and creating all these new options to create version after version that is both musical and interesting and different. And that's what I think the software does better than anything else. So that's the video today, to show you some of these options. Now remember, I'm learning this program. I've had it for less than a week. And as I learn and discover, I want to share this. And I'm sure I'm not doing everything the right way. And veterans of this program, feel free to add in the comments how you approach things. But I think this program is somebody described it as similar to the Photoshop of digital music. And at first I wasn't sure exactly what that meant. But I'm beginning to see that this program, more than likely, there's not just one way to do things. You can approach something from many different angles, and so everybody's going to have their own workflow. But I can see why this program has very passionate followers, and I hope to make a lot more videos. So have a great day wherever you are in the world, and we'll see you on the next video.